Hey everyone, welcome back. So today, we're talking about something really simple on the surface. Weekends. But, I don't know, lately I've been feeling like weekends are not as simple as they look. We wait for them all week, thinking we'll finally feel better, more relaxed. But sometimes they come and still feel a little off.
Yeah, I get that. It's strange actually, because weekend is supposed to be your break, right? But sometimes it doesn't feel like a break at all. It's like you suddenly have time, but you don't really know what to do with it or how to actually feel good in it.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about this properly. Not in that usual way where people say, enjoy your weekend, and that's it. Because real weekends are messy. Sometimes peaceful, sometimes boring, sometimes unexpectedly emotional. And people don't really talk about that part.
That's the interesting thing. A weekend can look very normal from the outside, but inside, it can feel completely different. Like two people can have the same free time, but one feels relaxed and the other feels restless or even a little empty.
Yeah, that contrast is real. And I feel like weekends actually say a lot about how we're doing in life. More than weekdays sometimes. Because during the week, we're busy, distracted. But on weekends, it's just you and your time.
That's true. And maybe that's why weekends can feel so different every time. Sometimes they heal you, sometimes they confuse you, and sometimes they quietly show you things you weren't really paying attention to before.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about all of that. The real version of weekends, not the perfect one. From lazy mornings to cancelled plans, from old memories to small trips, and all those little moments in between.
And maybe by the end of this, you'll start looking at your weekends a little differently too. Not just as a break, but as something that actually reflects how your life feels right now.
All right, so let's start from something really simple, but also kind of confusing. When you think about a weekend in your head, like on a Wednesday or Thursday, what does it look like for you? I'm not asking about your real weekend. I mean the version you imagine. The one that feels calm, organized, maybe even a little perfect.
That's interesting, because the imagined version always feels better than the real one. In my head, my weekend looks slow, but in a good way. I wake up without stress, I have my coffee peacefully, maybe I do something small but meaningful, and somehow the day feels balanced. Not rushed, not wasted, just right.
Yeah, that just right feeling. I think everyone kind of builds that picture during the week. Like, this weekend I'll fix my sleep, clean my space, maybe go out a little, maybe reset my mind. It almost feels like the weekend is supposed to repair everything that went wrong during the week.
And that's where things start getting a little off, because when the weekend actually arrives, your body is already tired, your mind is all over the place, and suddenly that perfect version you imagined doesn't match how you actually feel. So instead of a calm start, you wake up late, or you stay in bed longer than you planned.
Right. And that moment is so real. You open your eyes, you know you don't have work, no urgent pressure, but instead of feeling excited, you just lie there. Not fully resting, not fully awake either. Almost like your body is trying to catch up, but your mind is still stuck in the week.
Sometimes I don't even rush to get up. I just stay there, scrolling a little, checking messages, maybe looking at nothing important at all. And in that moment, it feels okay. Like I'm finally doing nothing. But then slowly, there's this small voice in the back of my head saying, you should get up. You're wasting your morning.
That quiet pressure. It's not loud, but it's there. And I think that's what makes weekends strange. You're free, but you don't always feel free. Because now you have time. And with time comes decisions. What to do, what not to do, how to use the day. And sometimes that feels heavier than just following a routine.
I agree, because during the week, everything is decided for you. You wake up, you go through your day, you don't have to think too much about it. But on weekends, you're suddenly in control. And if your energy is low or your mood is unclear, even simple choices feel tiring.
And then half the day just disappears. You look at the clock and it's already afternoon, and you're like, wait. What did I actually do? Not in a dramatic way, just small things. A bit of phone, a bit of sitting around, maybe thinking about doing something, but not really starting it.
Yes, that happens a lot. And the strange part is, Sometimes I don't even feel bad immediately. It's only later, maybe in the evening, when I start thinking about the day. Like, I had time. I could have gone out. I could have done something different, but I didn't. And that's when a little regret shows up.
That delayed feeling, it's so specific. In the moment, everything feels fine. But when the day is almost over, you start replaying it in your head. Not in a harsh way, just quietly asking yourself, did I really enjoy this day? Or did I just pass through it?
You know, social media makes that feeling stronger sometimes. You open your phone and suddenly everyone else seems to be doing something. Traveling, meeting friends, trying new places. And your weekend starts looking smaller in comparison, even if it wasn't actually bad.
It creates this invisible standard, like weekends are supposed to be exciting or meaningful in a very visible way. But real life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes your weekend is just slow, quiet, maybe a little unstructured, and that doesn't always fit into that perfect weekend image.
I've noticed something about that. The problem isn't always that the weekend was boring. Sometimes it's just that we expected it to feel different. We expected a certain kind of happiness, and when it doesn't happen, even a normal day starts feeling disappointing.
That's a really good point. So it's not just about what we do, it's also about what we thought we would feel. And when those two don't match, that's when the weekend feels off, even if nothing actually went wrong.
And honestly, some weekends are not meant to be exciting. Some are just there to let you slow down, even if it feels a little uncomfortable at first. But we're not used to that kind of stillness anymore, so we end up calling it wasted time.
That's true. We're so used to constant movement that when things get quiet, we don't always know how to sit with it. And maybe that's why weekends feel confusing sometimes, because they're not just about rest, they're also about facing yourself without distractions.
That's why the same weekend can feel completely different depending on your state of mind. If you're calm, it feels peaceful. If you're overwhelmed, it feels empty. If you're tired, it feels slow. It's like the weekend reflects whatever you're carrying inside.
That reflection part, it's kind of powerful actually, because maybe weekends are not supposed to fix everything. Maybe they just show you where you are, mentally, emotionally, without hiding it behind busy schedules.
I like that thought. It makes the weekend feel less like a test and more like a mirror. Not something you have to perform in, but something you just experience, as honestly as you can.
That's a good place to pause this idea for a second, because now I'm really curious about something more specific. We've been talking about how weekends feel in general, but I want to understand your actual weekend a little better. Not the imagined one, the real one.
All right, that might be a little less perfect than it sounds, but yeah, I can share that. So, if I'm being honest, my weekend doesn't look anything like the version I imagined during the week. It's not structured. It's not perfectly balanced. It's kind of loose, a little unpredictable. Some parts feel nice. Some parts feel like they just slip away without me noticing.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Not the ideal version, but the real one. So let's start from the beginning. What does your Saturday morning actually look like from the moment you wake up?
Saturday morning usually starts late. Not in a planned way. It just happens. My body doesn't wake up early like weekdays. And when I finally open my eyes, I don't jump out of bed. I just stay there for a while. Not sleeping, not fully awake either. It's like I'm slowly arriving into the day.
That in-between state. Yeah, I know that feeling. There's no rush, but also no clear start. Do you check your phone right away, or do you try to stay away from it?
I try not to, but I usually end up checking it anyway. Not for anything important, just small things. Messages, maybe the weather, maybe random videos. And it's strange, because at that moment it feels harmless, like I'm easing into the day. But time moves quietly there. You don't notice how much of it you're using.
It doesn't feel like time is passing, but it is. And then suddenly you look at the clock and the morning is almost gone. What happens after that? Do you follow any kind of routine, or is it still kind of open?
It's still pretty open. I'll eventually get up, make coffee, and that part I actually enjoy. It's one of the few moments that feels steady. I'm not thinking too much, I'm just there, holding the cup, maybe standing near the window, just watching outside for no real reason.
That sounds peaceful in a quiet way. Not exciting, but real. Do you usually have a plan in your head by then, or are you still figuring it out?
To be honest, I'm still figuring it out. There's always this soft pressure in the background, like I should do something useful. Clean my room, organize things, maybe go out. But at the same time, I don't always have the energy for it. So I kind of sit with that conflict for a bit.
That internal push and pull. Yeah. Part of you wants to make the day count, and another part just wants to stay slow. What do you usually end up doing in that moment?
It depends on my mood. Sometimes I start small, like picking up things around my room, folding clothes, just making the space feel a little better. Not a full deep clean, just enough to feel like I did something. And weirdly, even that small effort changes how I feel.
That's interesting. Like the space affects your mood, and your mood affects what you do with the space. Do you ever plan to go out during the day, or do most weekends stay at home?
I do think about going out, but I don't always follow through. There are moments where I feel like, okay, I should step outside, get some air, maybe walk somewhere. And sometimes I do that, just a simple walk, nothing special. But other times, I stay in. Not because I have to, just because I don't feel like moving too much.
That hesitation, it's not exactly laziness. It's more like low energy, right? Like your body isn't asking for activity, it's asking for something softer.
And I've learned not to force it too much, because when I try to push myself into a perfect weekend plan, it doesn't always feel right. It ends up feeling like I'm trying to copy an idea instead of actually listening to how I feel.
That makes sense. So your weekend is more mood-based than plan-based. What about the middle of the day, like afternoon? That's usually where things either come together or completely drift.
Afternoons are a bit strange. It's not morning anymore, but it's not evening either. Sometimes I'll watch something, sometimes I'll listen to music, sometimes I'll just sit and think without even realizing it. And that's where time becomes really quiet. It moves, but you don't feel it moving.
That's such a specific feeling. Like the day is happening, but you're not fully inside it. Do you ever feel like you should be doing more during that time?
Yeah, that thought comes back. Not loudly, just in the background. Like a reminder that I had time today, and maybe I didn't use it well. But I try not to judge it too quickly, because sometimes doing less is actually what I needed, even if it doesn't look productive.
That's a hard thing to accept, though, because we're so used to measuring our days by what we did, not how we felt. So a quiet afternoon can feel like nothing happened, even if something inside you settled a little.
Exactly. And I think that's why weekends are tricky. They don't always give you visible results. You don't finish something big, you don't achieve something clear. But sometimes you rest in a way that you couldn't during the week, and that matters, even if it's not obvious.
Yeah, that invisible kind of rest. It doesn't show up on a list, but you feel it later. What about evenings? I feel like weekend evenings have their own mood, very different from mornings.
They do. Evenings feel softer, but also more reflective. If the day felt okay, then the evening feels calm. Maybe I'll eat something simple, maybe watch something, maybe just sit with a quiet mind. But if the day felt scattered, then the evening can feel a little heavy.
Heavy in what way? Like regret, or just a sense that something was missing?
More like something was missing. Not in a dramatic way, just a small thought like, I had time today, and I didn't really connect with anything. And that feeling doesn't ruin the day, but it stays there a little.
Yeah, it lingers. And then Sunday comes, which always feels different somehow. Slower, but also a bit more aware that the weekend is ending. Does your Sunday feel different from Saturday?
It does. Sunday feels quieter, but also more thoughtful. I don't expect too much from it. It's more about closing things gently, maybe organizing a little, maybe preparing for the week without rushing it. There's this subtle awareness that time is moving again.
That transition feeling, from free time back to structure. It's not sudden, but you can feel it approaching. Do you ever feel that slight tension on Sunday, like the weekend is slipping away?
Yeah, especially in the evening. It's not anxiety exactly, but there's a shift. You start thinking about Monday, about responsibilities, about routines coming back, and suddenly the weekend feels shorter than it actually was.
That's true. Weekends always feel longer before they arrive, and shorter once they're almost over. It's kind of unfair in a way.
It is, but I think that's part of it. Weekends are not meant to feel complete every time. Sometimes they're just small pauses. Not perfect, not exciting, just enough to breathe a little before everything starts again.
I like that. Small pauses instead of perfect experiences. That actually sounds more real. And honestly, hearing your routine, it doesn't sound boring at all. It sounds human. A mix of slow moments, small efforts, and quiet thoughts.
Not impressive, not planned perfectly, just real. And maybe that's enough for a weekend, even if it doesn't always feel like it in the moment.
Yeah, and that makes me curious about something else now. Because sometimes it's not the usual weekends that stay with us. It's that one specific weekend that felt different in some unexpected way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I actually have one like that. It didn't start the way I thought it would, but it stayed with me longer than I expected. Yeah, I remember this one weekend very clearly. It started with a plan, like most weekends do. I was supposed to go out with a friend. We had already talked about it during the week, decided a place, even thought about what we might do after. It felt like one of those weekends that would actually go well.
So it wasn't just a random idea, it was something you were looking forward to. Did it feel different already, like more planned than your usual weekends?
I had that small sense of excitement building up. Not something big, just enough to make the day feel a little more alive. I even woke up earlier than usual that day, which almost never happens on my weekends.
That's interesting. Like your body responds differently when you're expecting something. So what changed?
The plan fell through. Nothing dramatic, just one of those simple cancellations. My friend couldn't make it, something came up. And I remember sitting there for a moment, holding my phone, just staring at the message. It wasn't a big deal, but it felt like the whole shape of the day disappeared suddenly.
Yeah, that moment hits quietly. It's not anger. It's not even disappointment in a loud way. It's more like the energy drops all at once. What did you do after that?
At first, nothing. I just stayed there, kind of blank. I had already imagined how the day would go, so when that disappeared, I didn't have a backup plan. And I didn't feel like creating one either, so I just slowed down again.
Did it feel lonely at that point, or just empty?
More empty than lonely. Like there was space in the day, but I didn't know how to fill it. I thought about going out alone, but I didn't feel fully in the mood. So instead, I made some tea, sat near the window, and just let the time pass for a while.
That shift, from an active plan to a quiet pause. Sometimes those moments feel heavier than we expect. Did the day stay like that, or did something change later?
It changed, but very slowly. I didn't force it. I just let myself stay in that quiet space for a bit. And then, after some time, I decided to step outside. Not for anything specific, just to move a little.
So no big plan, no destination, just walking.
Just walking. And that's where something small shifted. The air felt different, the streets were calm, and I didn't feel rushed anymore. I wasn't trying to fix the day. I was just inside it.
That's a subtle but important change. When you stop trying to control the experience, sometimes it becomes easier to actually feel it. Did that walk turn into something more, or was it just that simple moment?
It stayed simple, but it felt enough. I didn't go anywhere special. I didn't take pictures or do anything impressive, but I noticed things, like the quiet, the light, even the way I felt more present than I usually do. And by the time I came back home, the day didn't feel wasted anymore.
That's interesting, because nothing big happened, but something inside you shifted. It's like the weekend didn't go the way you planned, but it still gave you something real.
Yeah, and that's what stayed with me. I realized that not every good weekend needs a perfect plan. Sometimes it starts off disappointing, and then slowly becomes something meaningful, without you even trying too hard.
That's actually a really honest way to look at it. Because most of the time, we judge a day too quickly. If the plan fails, we assume the whole day is ruined. But maybe it just needs a different kind of attention.
But that weekend taught me that I don't always need to replace a canceled plan with another plan. Sometimes I just need to sit with the change and let the day reshape itself.
Let the day become something else, instead of forcing it back into what you expected. That's not easy, though.
No, it's not. But when it happens, it feels surprisingly calm. Not exciting, not dramatic, just quietly satisfying in a way I didn't expect.
That kind of weekend doesn't stand out immediately, but it stays with you longer. And I think that says something about how we experience time, not just how we plan it.
That's the part we don't talk about enough. The weekends that don't go as planned, but still give you something you needed without realizing it.
That's a really good point, and it actually connects to something I've been thinking about. Because the way we experience weekends now, it feels very different from how it used to be before.
Weekends didn't always feel this quiet or complicated. When I was younger, they felt bigger somehow. Not in hours, but in energy. Even simple things felt like something to look forward to.
That's true. There was a kind of excitement built into them. Like Friday itself felt special. Even before anything happened, you already felt lighter, like something good was waiting.
And it didn't have to be anything big. Just waking up without an alarm felt like freedom. Watching something in the morning, eating something different, maybe going out with family, it all felt enough. There wasn't this pressure to make the day meaningful.
No one was thinking about using the weekend well. You just lived it. Even doing nothing didn't feel like a problem. It just felt normal.
Right. And people were more present back then. You weren't constantly comparing your weekend to someone else's. You didn't feel like you were missing out just because your day looked simple.
That comparison part. It changes everything. Now, even a quiet weekend can feel wrong if it doesn't look exciting enough. Back then, the feeling mattered more than how it looked.
And also, weekends used to feel more social in a natural way. You didn't have to plan everything so carefully. You just met people, spent time, talked, and that was enough to make the day feel full.
But now, even meeting someone takes effort. Schedules, timing, energy. Everything has to align. And if it doesn't, the weekend just turns into something quieter by default.
I don't think it's worse, just different. Back then, weekends were more about shared moments. Now they're more about personal space. Sometimes that's peaceful, and sometimes it feels a little empty.
That shift is real. It's like weekends grew up with us. They lost some of that automatic joy, but maybe they gained something else, something slower, more reflective.
Maybe now they're less about excitement and more about understanding yourself a little better, even if that understanding isn't always comfortable.
I guess that leads to another side of it. How we try to shape our weekends now. Because even if they're quieter, we still try to plan something, even if it's small.
That's true. The way I think about going out or planning something now is very different from before. I feel that too. Weekends didn't always feel like this. Something about them has definitely changed. It's definitely different now. I don't plan weekends the way I used to. It's not about filling every hour anymore. It's more about how I feel. Like, do I need noise or do I need quiet? That usually decides everything.
So it starts with your mood, not the place. That's interesting. Do you usually know what you need right away, or does it take time to figure out?
It takes a little time. Sometimes I think I want to go out, but when I actually sit with it, I realize I just want a change of space, not a crowd. So instead of making a big plan, I look for something simple. Maybe a short drive, a calm cafe, or even just a different part of the city.
That sounds more intentional. Like you're not chasing something exciting, you're choosing something that fits your energy. Do you plan these things in detail or keep it flexible?
I keep it light. I'll check a few basics, like how far it is, how much time it might take, but I don't build a full schedule. If I plan too much, it starts to feel like work again. I want it to feel easy, not structured.
Overplanning can take the joy out of it. What about going with people? Do you prefer company or do you sometimes go alone?
It depends. If I have the right person, it's really nice. The day feels fuller. But I've also learned to go alone without overthinking it. At first, it felt a bit uncomfortable, like something was missing. But now, it feels peaceful in a different way.
That shift, from needing company to being okay on your own, that's not easy. Do you feel like solo plans give you something different?
They do. When I'm alone, I notice more. I'm not trying to keep a conversation going. I'm not adjusting to someone else's pace. I just move how I want. And sometimes that makes the experience feel more personal, even if it's very simple.
That makes sense. And I guess not every plan works out either, right? Sometimes things don't happen the way you expected.
Yeah, that happens a lot. People cancel, energy changes, or I just don't feel like going anymore. And earlier, that used to bother me. But now, I don't force it. If a plan doesn't feel right, I let it go. I've realized not every weekend needs to be turned into something big.
That's a calm way to look at it. Like you're not trying to prove anything with your weekend, just trying to experience it honestly.
The best kind of weekend plan now is something that leaves a small feeling behind. Not exhaustion, not pressure. Just a moment where I feel a little lighter, even if it's just for an hour.
Yeah, that lighter feeling sounds more valuable than any perfect plan. And it actually connects to something deeper, like what weekends really show us about ourselves.
I've thought about that too. Weekends reveal more than we expect sometimes. I really feel that. Weekends don't just give you time. They show you how you actually feel when nothing is distracting you. During the week, you're busy, you're moving, you don't stop. But on weekends, it's just you and your thoughts. And that can feel very different each time.
That's true. It's like the noise fades a little, and whatever is inside you becomes clearer. If you're calm, the weekend feels peaceful. But if something feels off, even a quiet day can feel heavy without any obvious reason.
Exactly. And I've noticed something. Being alone on a weekend isn't always the problem. Sometimes it feels really good, like you finally have space to breathe. But other times, the same silence can feel uncomfortable. The difference is not the situation, it's your state of mind.
That difference between being alone and feeling lonely. It's subtle, but it changes everything. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that part honestly.
And also, this idea that every weekend has to be productive. I don't fully agree with that anymore. Of course, it feels nice to do something meaningful, but not every weekend needs to be a transformation. Sometimes resting, even if it looks like doing nothing, is still valuable.
That's a strong point, because we often measure our weekends by visible results, what we did, where we went. But maybe a good weekend is not always something you can show. Maybe it's something you just feel quietly afterward.
Yeah, like a small shift inside you. Maybe your mind feels a little lighter, or your space feels calmer, or you just feel a bit more like yourself again. It's not dramatic, but it matters.
I like that. Not dramatic, but real. And I think that changes how we look at weekends completely. Instead of chasing a perfect experience, maybe we just need to be present in whatever the weekend becomes.
Maybe weekends are not meant to impress anyone, not even ourselves. Maybe they're just small pauses in our life where we can slow down, notice things, and reconnect a little.
And honestly, that feels like a better way to see it. Not as something we have to get right, but something we get to experience.
And that's the question for everyone listening right now. What does your weekend really feel like? Not what it looks like, but what it feels like when everything gets quiet.
That's a good place to leave it. If you're listening to this, take a moment and think about your own weekends. Are they peaceful, rushed, empty, fulfilling, or a mix of everything?
And if you feel like sharing, we'd really love to hear it. What does your weekend look like in real life? Not the perfect version, the honest one.
Now, drop it in the comments. And if this conversation felt even a little relatable, make sure you subscribe, like the episode, and stay with us for more.
We'll be back with more real conversations like this. Simple topics, but deeper feelings behind them.
All right, take care of yourself, enjoy your time, however it looks.
And yeah, have a real weekend.
We'll see you next time.